So what makes a good interview? You are crushing the interview game from
Oh,
somebody who
thank
like,
you.
I've like played an interviewer on TV for a very long time with WWE. So my
Yeah.
background is I worked in WWE as a broadcast. I
Yeah.
don't air quote the broadcaster. I was a broadcaster. I was an interviewer. We would be
Hmm.
handed questions and not actually getting to do the proper interviews like we get to do today. So now that I'm doing this podcast, I finally get to resubmerge myself into that. But
Yeah.
you've been crushing the interview game. What makes an interview so great?
Well, I mean, well, the one thing I'd say about interviews are, interviews are a major two-way street, right? So, yes, your interview is only going to be as good as the questions you ask, but it's also only going to be as good as how much that other person trusts you. Like somebody has to, first off, agree to sit down with you and agree that they want to talk to you about their life, maybe reveal things that they haven't. It takes two people to create a really great interview. I think the most important parts of an interview are like the first 10 to 20 minutes before the camera even starts rolling, because you just want to establish that
Mhm.
rapport, maybe get some jokes and like just make everybody comfortable in that setting. But I think as simple as it is, the key to a good interview is listening. So
Yes.
often, people will, younger students will send me like their reels of interview and want me to watch them. And the thing that really happens is you go into that interview with a list of questions that you have. And you're so focused on that list of questions that you're not even
Mhm.
listening to what their answer is. And so when you are only trying to rattle off your questions, you're losing the opportunity for follow-ups. You probably missed something really cool or insightful that they said. Because the
Mhm.
interview at the end of the day, it's about them. It's not about you. It's not about asking all of those questions. And so much I see people just forgetting to listen because all they want to do is talk and get to the next thing. So I think listening and being present is probably the best thing that you can do in an interview.
And how hard is it to relay that to people? Because I feel like I've been preaching that for years as well. Like, just
Yeah.
listen. All you have to do is listen and have a conversation and, yeah, be receptive to what the person is saying to you. But like, that is not it's not an easy skill to just like teach someone to do. I feel like it gets lost in translation a
Yeah,
lot.
it definitely gets lost in translation. And granted, I feel like when I very first started, I was absolutely doing that. I was like coming in with my questions. I'm like, ooh, question 3 is so good. I got to get to that right when I can.
Mhm.
But the interviews got so much stronger once I just kind of like, I started going in with just things I wanted to touch on as opposed to explicit questions that I wanted to ask. But I mean, when you're talking to like your mom or your dad or your friends, you're having a great conversation without knowing what you want to ask. And the
Mhm.
reason that conversation is good is because they're telling you stuff and you are bouncing back on what they told you. I truly believe that all interviews, you should operate like you're talking to somebody that you know. I just think it's the best way to do it and the best way to actually listen and, be there for the conversation.
I think prep can be really key as well so that you
Yes.
know the person, you know kind of what you want to talk about, but you're not relying on getting from point A to point B to C, like just to have that foundation laid down so that you can just have a natural conversation with somebody that you don't
Yeah.
know prior to sitting down with them.
Yeah, totally. And good prep is also what's going to give you a good follow up. If
Mhm.
I'm interviewing somebody and in their answer, they mention a guy that maybe there's a history that they don't like each other, right? Or a history that they once played together, whatever. Your prep will tell you that you can follow up on their answer. The worst thing you can do is come into an interview unprepared. Like, I feel like, and I'm sure you know this too, so much of interviewing is like taking in a bunch of information and then dumping it. Like
Yes.
when I'm gonna interview somebody, I become an expert on them for like 2 weeks.
Like
And
full
then,
stalker mode. I'm like, I know all
yeah.
your shit.
Yeah, I'm like an expert on them for 2 weeks. I do the
Yeah.
interview, I'm done, but then I got to make room to be an expert on the next person for two
Yeah.
weeks. So it's a lot of just like churning information in your head.
It really is just like crash shedding. Yeah, it's like flipping through someone's like Instagram and Twitter and
Yeah.
seeing what they're talking about and their likes and their interests. And I'm like, oh my God, I know like way too much about you, but
Yeah,
hopefully
like
it
I know
will
everything
shine
except like
through.
your social security number, but I can tell you like your birthday, I can tell your mom's maiden name.
It's so funny. I love that. So how do you set yourself apart from other, I don't even want to say interviews, but other like broadcasters? In my research of getting ready for this interview, it's like every single thing that I click on is like Taylor Rooks, next big star. Like
Oh,
everyone loves you, which is obviously great. That's what that's a great line of success for you. But how do you set yourself apart to just be in that position?
Oh, I mean, that's very kind. I don't really know. I don't know the exact answer, but I mean, what I say to everybody is there is one thing that we can all do better than every single person in the world, and that's be yourself. So I think the more that people learn to harness that, the more they'll just inherently be separated from other people because nobody else can do that. When I very first started, I thought I was supposed to play the role of journalist,
Ugh, yeah.
so I was rigid. I felt like every single story was like a Barbara Walters interview,
Yeah.
It's like that.
So
I just thought,
newsy.
yeah, I thought that's how you were supposed to act.
Mhm.
But my world opened up so much. My opportunities opened up so much when I had the realization that, like, no, what's going to make me stick out here is being you. Like, there's only one you. And I feel like, what I was doing as far as like doing these long form interviews and trying to really get to the heart of people, but making it fun and conversational and have an actual like wide ranging conversation. There wasn't a lot of that in the space. A lot of interviews were like 5 minutes long and they were very headliney, and you just wanted to ask the gotcha questions. You wanted to get like a really nice story, but we weren't learning who people actually were. And something I found a lot in interviews is, we have an idea of somebody when they sit down with us. And so all of the questions that we ask them just confirm that idea. So I try to not do that. I want the person to tell me about them, opposed to my questions just like perpetuating this narrative that is already out there about them.